Hello, it's Mr. O'Mara here, and I just want to recap some of the stuff we talked about today in terms of story structure. The thing that you've got is that you've got to have character. You're going to have at least one character, but it might be a dog, it might be a robot. Sometimes houses and vehicles and so forth are characters in a story. As Miss Soulos said, that happened in the Pixar movie Cars, but you can have, how somebody feels about their car, and their car can have real character. So you start with a character, or, if you're feeling so inclined, you might start with two. So let's have two characters and give them a name. So, it might just be, let's John over here, and we have Betty. So we have John and Betty. So we've got two characters, and you know what? This could be the start of our first sentence. So they need to be in a setting. So it might be John saw Betty at the beach. So let's have some beach. So there you go. There's some water. There's Betty. And that was a pretty shocking Betty. And there's John. And I've just made John the wrong colour, but there you go. And there's John. So you can have them at the beach. You could have John was woken up by when Betty dropped a pineapple on his head, so that you're suggesting that perhaps they're somewhere tropical or perhaps a fruit shop. But your story is set somewhere. And this can be set up in the first sentence. Complications. So let's say that John and Betty start out at home. So here's home. And by the end of the story, they want to get to the top of the mountain. Now, the big question here is, are they going to be able to get from here at the home to here at the mountain? Now, if it's just John and Betty set off the mountain and they made it, then that's a spectacularly short and spectacularly uninteresting story. So what you're more likely to do is say they went out for the mountain, but first they had to cross the river. And before they can get across the river, they in fact need to get themselves a boat. And this is a very bad drawing of a boat. So you've got the story of getting the boat, you get the story of getting across the river, and then as they go further down the road, they might run into a different complication. They might run into the complication that perhaps, there are bandits here and that they need to get around them, so they go off course. What all of these things are complications where the story goes a bit off course, and this is to hold your interest. So far, we're on our way to the mountain, there's a river, that throws us off course. Then we need to get a boat, then we need to get across the river, so that's another complication, then we need to get around the bandits, and then coming up to the end of the story, we're going to actually need to get to the top because, there's a pot of gold or, something, whatever it is, the climax of this story. So at the climax of this story, or the exciting end bit, you've got them going up here towards the top of the mountain. Now this is where you have the big will they or won't they. So you might have a plot complication where there's stuff coming down the mountain towards them, where there's another stream that they have to cross, where there's people who got there first and are going to fight them off. Now that's meant to be people, but that's a shocking drawing. So you can pile on the complications here as you get towards the climax. This is the big closing scene, the will they or won't they scene. Conclusion. Do they get to the top of the mountain? Or did they die trying? So, you decide. They don't have to always be victorious, although, it makes a pretty depressing story if they don't. So, that's just a quick recap of what we've talked about. I hope it's been some use to you.